One.
Nice. What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, April 8th, and you are watching Insiders TV. Joining me on the show, see if I can do this where it looks like a weatherman, Derek Carty from Fantasy Insiders, and oh, they can't see my hand. Never mind. Drew Dinkmeyer from Redo Experts. Guys, this is a fun show, like our first kind of three-person MLB show. I feel way out of my league, so I'm just gonna kind of be just throwing questions at both of you guys because, no offense, you both are baseball nerds. Again, no offense. So please don't take any offense. But again, welcome Derek Carty from Fantasy Insiders. Derek, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. I'm not trying to, do this balled up on my bed, so I'm much more comfortable today and excited to be doing this.
Always good. And then we have Drew. We have crap. I have it all messed up. Here we have Drew Dinkmeyer. I got your titles all mixed up. I will fix them though. Drew, are you excited to kind of be winding down NBA and starting up MLB?
Yeah, I took the night off from NBA, so my head is a little bit clearer than it's been in recent days. So I feel a little bit better about MLB tonight than I have through the first week of the season, trying to kind of focus on both. So
Yeah, I basically am not playing NBA tonight. Now tomorrow and Friday I might play, but tonight I decided I just couldn't do it. So interesting that you're not playing either. Do you ever get burned out, like
yeah,
on NBA stuff?
I mean I'm more burnt out with like just normal everyday writing right now because we're in a midst where we don't have a lot of off time. So with the two sports. So I'm at a point where if I write on a sport on a day, I'm playing that sport. I'm probably not playing the other. So that'll probably be my case. I'm writing NBA for us tomorrow, so I probably won't play MLB tomorrow.
Well, I mean, there's an early slate. There have been some early games, and basically, if you played any Baltimore bets, you're doing good today. So, thoughts on basically this Baltimore game? Did you have a lot of players in it, Drew?
I didn't play any of the afternoon slate, so
What?
I avoided this. I am very excited to see Baltimore go off after I picked up David Lowe in NFBC and he sat today. So that was a good start to my day. That everybody hit in their lineup, and I don't own any shares of the Orioles other than Lowe, and he did nothing because he was on the bench.
Yeah, it's been a high-scoring contest. Okay, good. I used that question to. Well, it's still not working. I had to get the backdrop behind me already. Baseball season is upon us, so let's just go ahead and get the kinks out of the way with Soccer Dave's setup. I need some like Cubs gear in the background. I need some a tan, I guess. But Derek, your setup looks really nice today.
Yeah, I put it together in like the last 2 hours, so it was kind of a rush job, but I think there's going to be some cool stuff moving around this year.
Ooh, very nice. All right, let's start with the games. Let's start with the pitchers. There are some concerns out there that we'll talk about as far as starting pitchers goes. I know, Derek, that you liked Corey Kluber yesterday. You like him again today. There also is Gio pitching for the Nationals. Here's my question though about Gio: is he both of your top overall pitchers? And Roto Kevin mentioned about the flu or getting over the flu and possible stamina issues. Drew, I'll start with you as far as if the flu is going to affect Gio in your mind.
I don't think it will, but it certainly could. I mean, he was sent home 2 or 3 days ago with the flu, and professional athletes get much better care than we do when we go home sick from our jobs with the flu. They're getting IVs all the time, so they can kind of flush out viruses pretty quickly. So I think he'll be fine. He is my top overall pitcher, just because there's generally a price gap between him and Scherzer, and I'm just more likely to save the money on Gio and a little bit of a friendlier matchup in terms of the opposing offense. Marlins have been good so far early in the season against left-handed pitching, but that's largely been against subpar lefties from the Rockies staff. So they were 28th in baseball and weighted on base average last year against lefties. And Stanton and Baker are two guys that concern you a little bit, but outside of that, it's a lineup that doesn't strike a lot of fear. So I go Gio 1, Max 2. That's a tier for me, and then the next tier for me is Archer, Kluber, and Lynn in some order that I'm trying to cipher out.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that pre-show. Derek, as far as you on the Gio play, and then kind of the Kluber, Archer, kind of how you are with those other pitchers other than Gio.
Yeah, I'm okay with Gio today, mostly for all the same reasons Drew said. I mean, you look at Jordan Zimmerman had like flu-like symptoms and got bumped back a day last week, and he came out the next day and just dominated. Like, these guys are all hooked up to IVs and everything, and I think he's fine, especially since he has what I think is far and away the best matchup today. I think his matchup is far superior to Scherzer's. So if you're going big today, you're going with Gio. The next tier, Kluber is my top guy. Not a huge fan of Archer. I mean, the matchup's good today, but I just have kind of some concerns about him in general. So Kluber would be my next guy after that.
Is he in a tier alone for you, Derek?
Yeah, he's in. I guess you can say he's in a tier alone based on salary on some sites. But I think in terms of matchup, I think there are some guys who are a little bit cheaper and a little bit inferior talent-wise who have similarly good matchups today. Guys like Burley and Kyle Loesch, Trevor Cahill. Oh wait, no, a couple of those already went today. I haven't followed it all today, so I've been running around. Yeah, Loesch and Cahill have already gone. It looks like they both did pretty well, or are doing pretty well.
How is Cahill doing?
Cahill?
He gave up a bomb to Belt in the first.
Boo.
Cahill is not doing so good. Okay. I take it back.
Boo. I might have played Cahill on South Street today. So as far as Scherzer goes, both of you are saying probably not. If you had a choice, you would play Gio over Scherzer instead of that matchup against LA.
Yes, absolutely. The one interesting thing with Scherzer is that normally he pitches in the American League where there's the DH, so I think he's at LA tonight where he's going to get that pitcher spot. So that kind of cuts against, LA's offense being, a fringe juggernaut. But it's still not the kind of matchup I'd really want to play him with when Gio has the kind of matchup that he has.
The other thing for me is, on multiple starting pitcher sites, Scherzer's generally priced pretty heavily over Gio, and then on the one starting pitcher site like FanDuel, he's priced like 900 more than Gio. But FanDuel, the win is also so important, and Gio's like a minus 190 favorite, something like that. Whereas Scherzer is a minus 115 favorite with Dan Herron on the mound. Vegas views that as a pretty tight game. So I think just the added win potential for Gio pushes him ahead of me, or ahead of Max for me, even when you take into account the price gap.
Yeah, we can talk about FanDuel a little bit later on, and the new feature that I am privileged to, and Drew, you are not yet. So it's a pretty cool feature by FanDuel. So maybe I'll do a little live demo. Also need to note that tonight, the DraftKings tournament, $400,000 walk-off tournament over there on DraftKings. As far as, we talk about DraftKings, they did add another little rule to their stacking. So you have to have at least 3 batters from your team. As far as top overall stacks, just looking at kind of what Vegas has. Colorado is going to be the one that over under of 10. Colorado with a minus 132, and then you have Toronto minus 200 and over under of 9. That's in Toronto. So as far as basically the Rockies or Blue Jays tonight for top stacks, who would that be for you as far as basically rolling out 5 hitters from that team, Drew?
In terms of like cash games and reliability of the stack, I'd say Colorado is the better one, but I think they're going to be really heavily owned in tournaments. So if you're trying to win tournaments, I think you almost might want to try to fade Colorado and hope Quintana keeps the ball on the ground, and then go in a direction of like Toronto or the White Sox. The White Sox are a really good stack too. They're a team total of 5. Toronto is a team total of 5, I believe, as well, and so is Colorado. And then there's a bunch of 4.5s. Actually, White Sox are at 4.5, but I could see them with Franklin Morales' skill set. He gives up a lot of bombs, like 1.5 home run per 9 to right-handed bats. It's a pretty right-hand heavy lineup. So White Sox and Toronto, I think, are the stacks. They're not necessarily off the radar, but I think they're less likely to be high owned than Colorado.
Derek, what about you? What teams do you like tonight?
I am in complete agreement with Drew. I think both of those teams are superior to Colorado stacks tonight. I think both of them are up against really weak pitchers. Toronto especially, they get Brett Oberholzer at home. Oberholzer's, a big fly ball guy. He's in one of the league's, best home run parks today against a team with a lot of good power hitters. And then, the White Sox, Franklin Morales he's downright terrible. He was terrible in relief last year, so I don't know how as a starter you're going to expect him to do anything in Coors Field against a team with a lot of good righties. So I think either of those you can't go wrong with.
All right, fair enough. Any contrarian or high upside stacks that you would be looking at tonight?
I think you could. I wouldn't necessarily be upset with a Rays or a Mets stack tonight. If you really want to be contrarian about it.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said Met stack, because Ben Pritchett, Natural Slugger, in today's article said something about a few of the Mets. You got David Wright, Duda, and I feel like there may have been a third Met in there somewhere.
I think maybe Murphy, I could see, or Granderson, or I think either of them look like good plays.
It was Murphy at second base. Drew, how do you feel about the Met stack tonight?
I mean, I like Harang, so I guess I'm on the other side of that equation. The velocity was up in the start against Milwaukee, and the Mets are striking out at a ridiculous clip to start the season, like 29% of their plate appearances so far. So I think Harang's a decent option. Obviously, when Harang's wrong, he's really wrong, so I don't mind the idea of that as a contrarian stack in a tournament. But for where his price is, I'm actually finding myself using Harang quite a bit tonight. So for me, if I was going to go off the board, I'll go off the board with the Mariners. One of the things that I look for with stacks is quality of bullpen behind the opposing starter, because that's when games really get out of hand, is when the bullpen really sucks. And the Angels' bullpen's pretty bad, and it's very right-handed. And, getting past Hector Santiago isn't the easiest thing in the world, because the Mariners are pretty left-handed. They did it the first time that they matched up, but Santiago is a guy that's very inefficient with pitches. So even if he pitches okay, he could be out in 5 innings. And you could get into that heavy right-handed bullpen, and there's a lot of lefties in that Mariners lineup. It's a bad park, so that's as contrarian as I could get.
You've got your compadre Mike trying to get us to play the Astros for a stack tonight.
I don't mind. I taking Dexter Fowler out of the lineup is huge. Fowler's probably their best hitter as a right-handed hitter. You replace him with Robbie Grossman at the top of the lineup, and that really has a trickle-down effect on that lineup. So Burley, can be bad at times, and the Jays bullpen has improved behind him, though. So I don't know. I like Guzman. I like Chris Carter, for a cheap home run play. But the rest of that lineup to me is pretty ugly. Altuve, Castro, Altuve, Guzman, Carter are the only 3 I'd consider, really. Maybe Dominguez, but Alex Presley's in there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Alex Presley and LJ Hose don't do anything for me. Neither does Robbie Grossman. And, that's 1, 6, and 8. And Castro is terrible against lefties in the 4 spot. So there's momentum killers in that lineup in bad spots.
Okay. So basically, you're saying that Michael is basically high on something. That's what you're saying.
No, I mean, look, it's a team in a good hitter's park, and they're the road team, so they're guaranteed 9 innings. So there's some things to like there. I just think there's momentum killers in that lineup that are going to prevent some big innings.
Papa Cub says factor in the fact that Mike knows which games are going to go extra innings. For those that do not know, Mike won the Star Street Baseball Championship last year because the game went 17 innings long. And he basically kept on scoring.
Casper Wells was the pitcher of record for Mike to win a championship.
It is, I think as we begin to talk about baseball, and it's good that we can kind of dissect some of the strategies. Drew, you mentioned that as far as stacks go, if a team goes off, it's the road team that's going to get all 9 innings. If a home team goes off, you need them to do all their damage in 8 innings if you're doing the stacks. So a lot of times you'll see people targeting those road stacks. So it's an interesting play, and it kind of gives more credence to the White Sox play that you talked about. And at that game, I could see the White Sox going long. Drew, you've got this smirk on your face.
Because Renee is calling me out on Twitter that IVs fix dehydration but do not flush viruses. And I'm no scientist, so I'll take her word for it.
She said while watching Insiders TV while driving, so not in chat, but Drew Dinkmeyer, IVs fix dehydration. They do not flush viruses. Oh, good gracious. Renee, for those that don't know, is like a rocket scientist pretty much. I don't even know what she is, but she is a college professor that wrote a whole book on cognitive bias. She's also going to be doing a weekly article on Fantasy Insiders about her exploits in daily fantasy baseball, which will be fun. Renee is probably the coolest daily fantasy baseball girl that there is out there. Maybe not even girl. I mean, maybe just person out there. So it'll be fun to get her on there. Let's talk about the catcher spot and who you like out there. Rosario is a lot of people's first option. Is he your first option, Derek?
Yeah, I think Rosario's a good bet. I mean, he's got the platoon advantage against Quintana, who's, he's not one of the worst pitchers going today, but he's also definitely not one of the best. So I can definitely see Rosario, if you're going big on catcher, being a really valid option.
Drew?
He's my number 1 overall hitter in our model. So I think you build lineups around Rosario tonight. There's only one other catcher I'd even consider tonight, and that's DeAndre Navarro. Everybody else to me is way down the list of priorities, and because Rosario is our number 1 overall hitter, and he's not really priced too aggressively anywhere relative to the other top hitters, I will have him in almost all my lineups, except tournament lineups that I'm trying to get contrarian.
Okay. You also so you have no love for Yadier batting in that 5th spot tonight against Homer Bailey.
Right on right against a pretty good pitcher and a pretty good pitching park. Not really my taste.
Okay. Derek, what about you? Any other catchers you see out there?
I could see the argument for Zunino if you want to be contrarian or if you want to go really, really cheap at catcher today. But aside from that, I don't think there's a whole lot to like. Navarro's okay too, but that's about it.
Ben, in his article, mentions Tyler Flowers and puts him at the best value at FanDuel, where he's $2,200, Star Street, where he's $3,600, and Draft Day, where he's under
You know what?
$8K.
I miss Flowers entirely. Yeah, I like Flowers today a lot, actually, in cores against Morales. Yeah, definitely Flowers.
Do you love Flowers, Derek?
I don't, but I like the matchup today.
I was talking about the actual flowers.
Yeah.
Like that you grow. Okay. First base. Drew, who do you like at first? You've got Joey Votto. You've got E5 as two options that I'm targeting. I know that Votto was Ben's kind of play other than Chris Davis, and like on FanDuel, he's 3,900. Thoughts on the first base spot tonight? As Ben mentions, there are a ton of options there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options. I mean, Votto always rates really high in any sort of on base model, but it doesn't play as well on all daily fantasy sites because it's not as much ISO driven. And a lot of the daily sites they reward total bases more, or they reward runs and RBIs more than total bases. So when he's outside of Cincinnati, and that lineup's a lot worse this year without replacing Shin-Soo Choo with Billy Hamilton. So I'm less likely. The matchup's very good. Lance Lynn sucks against lefties, so it's a very, very good matchup. But I'm more inclined to spend, if I'm going to spend, on Edwin against Oberholzer, fly ball pitcher. Edwin's an extreme fly ball hitter, so that might be one of your best bets for a home run tonight. And then Jose Abreu is just way cheaper than all those guys, and he ranks as our third best hitter overall in our model. Now, there's some projection to that because we don't have history on Abreu, so Mike and I have to do a manual projection on Abreu and try to guess at what his splits would be. But we're guessing around a 370 weighted on base average against left-handed pitching for him. We think that's pretty conservative. He could be even better. So in Coors against Morales, he's the guy that I'm targeting pretty much across the industry.
Yeah, Ben talks about Morales introducing a cutter this offseason, and he doesn't expect it to do much. Has a career weighted on base average of 353 against right-handed batters with 25 home runs. So there's your little... Ben loves to learn like people's new pitches and what they've done in the offseason and how effective it is. So he always incorporates that in his article. So he has Abreu as number 3 also. What about you, Derek? Anybody else you see in that first base spot?
I think that covers a lot of it. I think E5 is far and away the best today. I think Abreu is really good. I think if you want to go cheaper, I think Lucas Duda's okay. I think either of the Astros guys, Chris Carter, if he qualifies, or Jesus Guzman, I think they're both, okay cheaper plays at first base today. But I think that might be one of the places you want to spend your money today because there are a lot of good big money options there.
Yeah, and I think Duda most places. Is he first base eligible, Drew? I know, like on FanDuel, I think he's just outfield.
He's outfield on Draft Street, and I mean he shouldn't be. He should be first base. He should be first base everywhere, but yeah, he's first base outfield on DraftKings, outfield on Draft Street, and I think outfield on FanDuel. Yeah. Guzman's got some same things where he's a little bit funky with with eligibility, and if you can get Guzman in the outfield, I like that a lot tonight.
Okay, so usually the shortstop, second base spots are the spots that kind of trip people up. You have tonight, second base is kind of a growth spot, and third base is also interesting. As far as shortstop, I think that going Ramirez and Tulo and that White Sox-Rockies game, why try to reinvent the wheel? Both of them have really good matchups. So I like those two matchups in Coors. As far as other options at the shortstop position, before we get to the second base, third base, Drew, any other second base or shortstops that you like?
For me, it's like Tulo and nobody else because Alexi's kind of expensive. He's like 3,600 on FanDuel. He's like 7K. There's almost no price difference between Alexi and Tulo on Draft Street. So for me, it's Tulo and like nobody else. If there's a big price discrepancy between Alexi and Tulo, and you want to play that Morales sucks, that's fine. Just recognize Alexi kind of sucks too. He has a 312 weighted on base average against right-handed pitching for the last 3 years, so he's a below average hitter. He doesn't tend to hit that in that great a spot of the lineup. It'll be interesting to see what they do tonight because they haven't faced a lot of lefties yet. I'd like to see him hit like 6, but that's where they put Semien. So I actually like Semien greater than Alexi. tonight on sites that he's shortstop eligible because he's way cheaper and he has a 322 weighted on base average against lefties for the last 3 years. So he's a little bit better hitter than Alexi.
Papa Cub says, "Are you saying that his price is too low?"
Well, what's your sound effect for that, Dave?
Oh man, I need.
That's what we need. We need to know if you give him the buzzer or if you give him,
Okay. I will get that sound effect. But I will give him the thumbs up for that one. Derek, any reservations about Tulowitzki with him being pulled last night for tightness in his leg? Rocky said it was just precaution. So any sort of worries about rolling him out there tonight?
Not really. I mean, the matchup's good. Shortstop is pretty shallow today, and I mean, it is Tulowitzki. He's brittle and whatever you want to say about him, but he's the guy today. Alexi, his platoon splits are much lower than you expect to see out of a righty. So, especially if his price is kind of creeping up there, close to Tulo's on most sites, like Drew said, I think Tulo's kind of the obvious pick.
All right, well, let's talk about second base and third base. We talked about Murphy from the Mets, and you've got Pedro at third base along with David Wright, but two Mets there, and you talked about not really liking any Mets, Drew, so I'm curious as to what you would like to do with that second base, third base position.
Well, it's not that I don't like any Mets. It's just that I don't mind Harang.
No,
and
you
he's
said
cheap.
You said, and I quote, "I don't like any Mets tonight. They're going to get shut out."
We'll have to check the tape on that. I do like Murphy. So Murphy, especially on FanDuel, he's cheap at 2,800. I've got like three guys at second base that I'm looking at that are all kind of priced similarly around the industry and that are kind of making my decision at second base. Now, if Semien is available at second base, I like him. We just talked about him as possible shortstop. But the three guys I'm looking at are Howie Kendrick, Neil Walker, Daniel Murphy. Like all three of them grade out pretty similarly in our model. Kendrick is the one that's the best individual hitter versus his split, but he might be facing the best pitcher. James Paxton looked great in his first outing against the Angels, and I don't have a good feel for Paxton yet. We don't have a lot of major league record on him, and Kendrick's not a really selective hitter, and Paxton's issues in the minors were walks. So he's the best skilled hitter, but he might be in the toughest matchup in the toughest park. Murphy's the guy I like most of the group, and he has a little added incentive bonus in that he has the pitcher versus batter data that's so beautiful against Harang.
Second base for you, Derek.
I think Semien is obviously a good pick. Kendrick, not really feeling today. I think Paxton is actually very good. I think he's kind of over some of those control issues he had in the minor. I think there was more going on there than just the numbers bear out. I think Altuve is a good option today. He's going into Toronto against Burley, who's not the worst pitcher today, but he's got the platoon advantage. He's got a better park. So I think those are kind of the guys that I'd be zeroing in on at second base today.
Murphy and Altuve for you, Derek?
Yeah, and Semien. I think he's okay today too. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Altuve too. For me, it's just a price thing. He's like 500 more than those guys on FanDuel, and he's like 1,000 more than those guys on Draft Street. So if you can get, I've only really looked at FanDuel, Draft Street, and DraftKings, but if you can get Altuve at similar prices to those guys, I think he's the best hitter and the best matchup of that group. I would agree with Derek.
Okay, third base now. Pedro seems like the guy that you might want to target for qualifiers for that long. But I mean, obviously, he is the king of over 4 with 3 strikeouts or a couple of home runs. So, are you willing to take that chance tonight on Pedro, Drew?
I'm more on the Arenado train than Pedro. Here's the thing: in Chicago, it's going to be low 40s with the wind blowing in. Now the wind's not blowing hard, but low 40s that inhibits the ball flight. And Edwin Jackson generally keeps the ball on the ground. He's got command issues. He gives up line drives, but he generally keeps the ball in the park. He averaged less than 1 home run per 9, even to left-handed bats. So, I think Alvarez is a good play, but I think Arenado is a much better play. I think Arenado is really underrated as a hitter versus left-handed pitching. He's got like a 367 weight on base average, but that's with a 308 BABIP and a 24% line drive rate. So I think there's even more upside there. He has unbelievable contact rates against left-handed pitching, strikes out less than 10% of his plate appearances against left-handed pitching. So Arenado's my
guy. Derek, what about you as far as, and Drew, I would agree, like on DraftKings, Arenado 3,800. And Pedro's those 3,900. That's why I think just targeting this, like if you're doing this walk-off tournament, I mean, I think Pedro might be a decent spot if you stack a team and put him at that third base spot. If you really want to get some home run potential guys for cheap, I mean, under 4K, and he has that potential. But Arenado is 3,800. David Wright, 4,300. Derek, where do you see kind of the third base going tonight?
I think Alvarez is a very interesting play, especially because he plays in PNC Park for, all of his home games, and that's, perhaps the biggest pitcher's park in the National League, and he gets to play in Wrigley today. Weather, as Drew said, isn't optimal for him, but he does have a big platoon split. He does have a lot of power. He's got a better park, so I couldn't fault anyone for going with him. I think Arenado has a really good matchup today. I also, my system has him down for a really big projected true platoon split. And I think if you want to go a little bit cheaper, I think Matt Dominguez has a good matchup today too.
Interesting about Dominguez. So no love for David Wright from either of you?
That price on DraftKings is good. 4,300. I wouldn't argue with that. But on the other sites, I'm not going to pay crazy money for him when I can get Arenado.
Yeah, I'm in complete accordance there.
All in one accord. All right, well, let's take some questions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And Papa Cub leads off saying, okay, value or site aside, don't worry about the site. Pick one batter and one pitcher that, regardless of value, that you would feel comfortable with rolling out on every single site. Drew, you already said Rosario is number 1 on your list. With the catcher being kind of the one where you want to punt or go big, would he be your top overall guy?
Yeah, Rosario is our number 1 hitter in our model overall. And like I said, I don't see a lot of other catcher options that I really like. So for me, if I had to pick one hitter, it would be Rosario or maybe Tulo, because the same thing at shortstop. Just the value that those guys give you over the rest of the field to me is a lot stronger. If I had to pick one pitcher, without any price tag associated with him, as we talked about earlier, Gio Gonzalez is my number 1 pitcher.
Derek, what about you?
I would agree with Gio. I think he's far and away the best pitcher today, and the matchup is right. In terms of hitters, I think Edwin Encarnacion would be the one guy I'd go with. I like the Rosario matchup, but I think E5's is a little better, and I think he's a much better hitter overall. So
I will go with Gio also, so we're all on Gio. And then I think that Ben has me convinced on Joey Bats tonight as being the top guy. You talk about Toronto being kind of the sneaky stack team. The only thing, you said, Papa Cub, about like price not being an option. That's why I think Joey Bats, his price has gone up, and I think on FanDuel he might be 4,900. He is 5,000 on DraftKings, so he's not cheap. But I'll go all in on Joey Bats tonight.
He's very similar to Edwin for me. I think you can't go wrong with either one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm ending up with more Bats than Edwin simply because I'm making the choice to take Abreu over Edwin at first base, and there's not a you get 3 outfield spots, so I'm not forced to choose as much with Batista. So I'm ending up with more Batista than Edwin personally.
What about Miggy Cab? Drew, that is Miggy Cabrera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
He's number two. He's the number 2 hitter in our model. He's like never outside the top 5. He's awesome. He hits lefties and righties the same. He hits lefties and righties better than almost anybody else in baseball. So, and Dan Herron has some reverse splits in terms of the long ball. He gives up more home runs to righties. So, it's not a great park. But if you want to go a little bit contrarian and pay up for Miggy and then go cheap in some other areas, I think Miggy's got one of the top 3 home run scorers in our model today in terms of looking at guys just their ability to hit a home run.
I think I'm a little bit lower on Miggy today. I think we do our platoon splits a little bit differently, me and Drew. And I'm a big Heron fan. The park today is actually a little bit better, I think, than what he's used to in Comerica. But I think there's a lot of better options out there today than Miggy if you're going to spend that kind of money.
Listen, there could be worse things than having a difference in reverse platoon splits or platoon splits. I don't know.
Were you even listening to us?
Yes, I was.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Because that last sentence suggests you weren't.
No, I am. The platoon. I don't know why I said reverse. The platoon model. Okay. I was queuing up the rapid fire for us to go over. So let's take a look there. Robinson Cano. Well, that's not right. I'll get it. Robinson Cano or Giancarlo Stanton? Drew?
Stanton. Not close in my model.
Derek?
Or Cano. Yeah, Stanton.
We have Stanton really high in our model too. It's one of those things that's frustrating. I'm not getting enough exposure to him just because it's Gio and the rest of the offense stinks. But he's in the top 5 in our model today.
Okay, for some reason this is not agreeing with me. I hate when that happens. Hosmer, or Navarro?
I'm looking it up. Navarro.
I will take Hosmer.
David Wright versus Bryce Harper. We haven't
Harper.
Really?
Harper for sure, yeah.
We're going to get...
Harper's in a really good spot today, too.
He is, but our buddy Steve says he sucks. So, you both know Steve and his personality. So he said... Well, I'm paraphrasing when I say that he says that Harper sucks. It was actually... It was actually a lot more colorful than that, but that is basically what he was saying. Hayward versus Votto.
It's Votto, but I like Hayward tonight a lot too.
Yeah, it's got to be Votto.
Guzman versus Marte.
Guzman,
yeah.
There you have it. So pretty much, were you guys in agreement on?
We differed on one. I
second
think I
one,
have Navarro and he has Hosmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's basically free money. So go over there to draft day and do the rapid fire. We do have some questions. Stubbs or Shearholtz? Stubbs is leading off. Drew?
It's a great spot for Stubbs to be leading off, and he's really cheap. On sites that reward runs and RBIs more, I think he's the better play. But on sites that are pure OBP, I think Shearholtz is the better play. Like FanDuel, for instance.
Yeah. Derek?
Stubbs.
A lightning round answer. I like it.
Yep.
Let's see. Thoughts on Jason Hayward? Drew, you're the one who just said that you do like Jason Hayward tonight. So, thoughts on him? Talk about freezing at the most inopportune time. Oh, okay. Derek, I'll let you take that question. Your thoughts on Jason Hayward?
I think Hayward has a fringe good matchup tonight, not a good or a great one. I'm a big Cologne fan, but Hayward does have the platoon advantage. He's batting, lead off tonight behind or in front of some good hitters. He's playing at home, so there is some things to like about Hayward's matchup today. But it's not like he's a guy like I have to have.
Okay, we're talking about outfielders, and Kyle did post the Colorado lineup. Kadire batting fourth, Stubbs leading off, Barnes second, Tulo third, Rosario in that fifth spot, and then Arenado moves to the sixth spot, Morneau at the seventh spot, and then Culberson at the eighth. So Blackman not in there tonight. If you have Blackman on FanDuel, I'm pretty sure that Kadire is around that same price. Like Kadire's price, fairly reasonable there. So Drew, I guess, I don't know. Maybe he has that Napster Man connection, but we'll see if he can. And oh wait, that's right. Reading over that lineup. Cargo is going to be out tonight. So if you played him in early matchups that don't have late swap, well, you're screwed. Let's talk about outfielders. Papa Cub wants to know about any medieval outfielders, but who do you like at the outfield spot, Derek?
I think there's a lot of options tonight at outfield. I think you can go. Do we have a White Sox lineup yet? I can't find one. But if the Rockies is out, does that mean is the White Sox just about upon us?
Yes, we do. It's Eaton, Simeon, Abreu, Viciedo, Gillespie, Garcia, Ramirez,
nice.
Flowers, and Quintana.
Yeah, I think Viciedo and Garcia, both really good plays. Where were they batting? Sounded like 6-7 maybe.
Yeah.
Not ideal, but I think the matchup's really strong for both of them. So I'd probably roll with them.
at the number 3 spot, which kind of goes to what you were talking about, and Viciedo at the 4th
Who's at
spot.
number 3?
Yeah. Abreu at the 3, Viciedo at batting cleanup, and then Gillespie batting 5th. Avisel Garcia batting 6th, and I know he is a real cheap guy that Drew talked about liking, or Ben talked about liking in his article. I don't know if Drew likes him or not.
I love Garcia in general. I think the matchup stays good. Batting 6th, I think you said, not ideal. I think Viciedo batting cleanup, I think he's just money right there. So I think he would be in pretty much all of my lineups today, considering the price he's probably going to come for.
All right, what other outfielders are you willing to spend on? What are some high-price outfielders that you like tonight?
Batista, obviously, incredible matchup. Let's see, who else? I think Melky, too. I think he's good. He's batting leadoff. He's having a really good season, which I expected of in my projection system. Liked him a lot. And, he's a switch hitter, so not as good a matchup as Batista, but it's still a really good one, so I'd be all about that. Let's see. I think Stubbs has a good matchup. I think we got Drew back.
Yes, we do. Drew,
okay.
Did you say your power was cut?
Yeah, yeah. As soon as my wife got home. Very, very suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact that you were gone 30 seconds, too, also very suspicious.
Very suspicious.
We're talking about outfielders that we can spend on. Also, while you were gone, I'm not sure if you saw the news that Cargo is out tonight for the Rockies, and Kadire batting in that cleanup spot, and Stubbs leading off with no Blackman either in that lineup.
Yeah, that's a nice lineup. Having Cargo in it would be better, obviously.
Kadire's on my list, too. I like that.
I like Kadire a lot. He has a 391 weighted on-base average against left-handed pitching the last 3 years. And at least one of those years was in a tough park, not Colorado inflated. So He's really strong play. And then I saw the news posted in chat that got me almost as excited as having my wife back home was Dion Viciedo hitting fourth. That is an awesome spot for Viciedo, who just crushes lefties. And it's awesome for Colorado hitters because it means Viciedo's in the field, and he's terrible. So it's good all around for fantasy.
Viciedo or Melky?
Viciedo.
I like Melky a lot too, but I'd go Viciedo.
Okay. As far as other outfielders that you're willing to spend on tonight, Drew, who would that be?
Kadire made my list, and
Joey Bats.
Joey Bats made my list. Those are pretty much my top two that I'm looking at. I'm never going to argue, playing Trout, but when the price discrepancy is so big between the other guys, I'd rather wait for a better matchup. Harper is another guy I'm looking at, especially on a site like Draft Street where his price is way down. I like Hayward where his price is down. Cologne gives up 1.4 home run per 9 to left-handed bats since 2011, and most of that is in pitching in the Coliseum. So that's a lot of home run tendencies. Now, he's one of only 2 lefties in the lineup, so I could envision that game being lower scoring, but I think his individual matchup's very good.
Jay Bruce, I know he was listed as number 2 on Ben's outfielders that he recommended. Thoughts on Jay Bruce, Derek, tonight?
Let me take a look at Bruce. Yeah, not up on my list. I think he's got a decent matchup against Lynn, who, as Drew said, has some questions with his platoon splits. But he's playing in a much worse park, and Lynn is pretty good in general. I don't think they're as exaggerated maybe as I think maybe Drew has him down for. So Bruce has like an okay matchup, but if I'm spending that kind of money, it's going to be on Bautista or on someone else. Kadire's probably not quite that level, but I like Kadire's matchup today for spending a solid chunk of change.
You know what you just did, Derek?
What's that?
You just glossed over Jay Bruce. And that is what Ben said people would do today. And I quote, I think people are going to gloss on by Bruce today. He isn't playing at Great American, and he's not priced too low. For some reason, Lance Lynn still invokes fear in the masses. This game has Jay Bruce written all over it. He'll be facing a right-handed pitcher that is susceptible to the long ball. I don't need much more justification than that. His price is way too cheap across the sites. There aren't many guarantees in baseball, but I'll guarantee I'll be owning Bruce across the board. So, somebody likes Jay Bruce, and his name is Natural Slugger. Drew, are you glossing over Jay Bruce tonight?
I guess so, because I feel the same with Derek. There's other guys that take before him. I don't mind the matchup. Lynn really does struggle against lefties. But again, with 7 righties in that lineup, I think there might be some ability to try to pitch around Votto and Bruce and just attack righties. We'll see. Bruce has had really good success against Lynn in terms of power numbers in his career. But again, it's a downshift in Parks in terms of power. So he ranks well in my eyes, but not super elite.
He also calls Duda a borderline must play. So there you go. Ben likes to live dangerously. So there you go. He is a cheap outfield option for those wanting cheap outfield options. Any other cheap outfield guys other than Garcia that you see out there, Drew?
Shearholtz for the Cubs. There's a lot of lefties for the Cubs. I mean, they're not. They have like no home run upside because Charlie Morton keeps the ball on the ground so well. But he's allowed a 390 weighted on base average to left-handed bats since 2011, and he walks like 11% of them. And the Cubs are going to have 7 of them in the lineup. So I'm on the fade Charlie Morton train tonight. There's some cheap options you can pick on there, but I'd rather pick on those guys on a site like FanDuel where it's more OBP driven than some of the other sites. Jesus Guzman, we talked about earlier, like him a lot. Seth Smith is another guy that's not a bad option. Kluber struggles against lefties. Smith hits righties pretty well, and he's done most of that work in bad ballparks. So those are some guys that are near the minimum.
McCutchen, neither of you mentioned McCutchen on your radar for tonight. Is there a McCutchen fade going on by both of you that I need to know about?
he's just so much better against lefties. So, like, for me, if I'm going to pay full price for McCutchen, I want to do it against a left-handed pitcher rather than a right-handed pitcher. Edwin's not particularly tough on righties, but, the difference, for instance, for his career, McCutchen has a 361 weighted on base average against right-handed pitching and a 427 versus left-handed pitching. So, when I pay the premium for McCutchen, I want it to be against the lefty.
Okay, Aaron Smash wants to know Votto or E5. Both of you going E5.
Yes.
And I think that would probably be the way I would go as well. Let's see, Viciedo or Garcia?
Viciedo for sure.
Yeah, I would go Viciedo too.
De Aza or Stubbs? Is De Aza in the lineup?
I would assume not if Viciedo's in.
No, he's not. And Kyle caught himself with that, yes. Garcia or Stubbs?
I'd like to hear Derek's take on Avisail because he's a guy that totally confuses me with his small sample against left-handed pitching so far.
Yeah, I'm a big Avisail Garcia fan. I think in general, I think he has a lot of quality tools. I think he's playing in a much more favorable situation now, playing his home games in U.S. Cellular and with Robin Ventura as a manager who likes to run. And today, obviously, he's in seats. I've got him down basically for it looks like a pretty much league average platoon split just because the sample size is pretty small. So I think that's kind of the best you can assume with him. But even with a league average, platoon split in the kind of situation he faces today against what I consider the weakest pitcher of the day in, perhaps baseball's best power park, I think he's a great play today. You'd like to see him maybe up one spot higher in the order, which is why I think Viciedo is a better play. But I think Avisail's, he's really good too. Yeah,
he's a guy that scouts love, and I mean, people have thrown like Miguel Cabrera comps on him with the hit tool, which to me just opens my eyes. He's never taken walks, and so I've always struggled with his stat line in the minors, and he struggled against lefties early in his career, but his swing's really pretty. And I know Derek's gone to scout school, so that's why I wanted to ask Derek's opinion on it.
Yeah, from a scouting perspective, I like Garcia. I think there's some good upside on him as a player.
Scout school. How intense was that? How intense was scout school?
It was super intense. It was 2 weeks out in the Arizona desert in the heat. I mean, I think the hat up there, those are the hats that they gave us to deal with the heat because it was just blistering. I was just coated in like sunscreen, but it was such an awesome experience learning how to kind of evaluate players with your eyes and how to look at them and see, mechanically maybe what they're doing right or wrong, or evaluating their tools. It was an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of sidetracked that question. Kyle was asking Stubbs or Garcia. What do you think, Derek? I have them very, very close.
Yeah, I have them pretty close too. I think I'd go Garcia, but I think Stubbs also has a good matchup today.
What about saying Garcia for... No, I don't know. I was going to say cash games or GPP, but those two guys are kind of similar there. Yeah, maybe hitting in the sixth spot would mean more for Garcia in a contrarian play. So maybe he would be the more GPP play, if that's what you're wondering, to use as a tiebreaker. Let's see. Papa Cup says, do you get a heavy callus around your eyes when you use binoculars over 2 weeks? I think he's talking about scouts having binoculars. Drew, you're his son. I mean,
I can't defend my father. What do you want from me?
I mean, after all, you are his model, basically. I mean, that's he produced you, and you're his model. So, yeah.
No comment.
That may have been one of my favorite witty question jokes that Papa Cub has ever asked on this show. I love it. If you have any more questions, feel free to get them to us. Abreu and Kadir or Freeman and Stubbs. It seems like the first one would be what all three of us would be on as far as Abreu and Kadir. We've talked about both of them.
Second one's a good contrarian.
Yeah, we haven't.
Freeman's not in a bad spot either.
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about Freeman, but I know he's high on other people's boards as their number one first base, which is it's kind of surprised me. But there are a lot of good first basemen tonight. I think it's going to be where people are going to be placing their value, and also the mini stacks. If you're playing the Blue Jays and mini stack with E5 and Joey Bats, then you want to go there. And I think that would be the way you want to go. Shortstop punt play.
Let's see.
Simeon is the first name that came to mind, but he only has shortstop eligibility on a few sites. I don't really have a good one.
I know Desmond's not really a punt play.
I don't see a lot.
You talked about the Mets, and Drew, I know you talking about how you think Harang's going to have a decent game, but Tejada batting in that 8th spot as a GPP play could be a punt play you want to go for, but there's not a ton of cheap shortstops out there. I mean,
I'll give you one. And it's a total throwaway. But Alex Gonzalez does have some power, and Dan Herron is prone to giving up home runs. He's bare minimum.
Okay.
You're very likely to get like 0 for 4 with 2 Ks, but you might get lucky and get a home run with that.
Yeah, and we'll just assume that he's in the lineup for tonight. Have you seen the lineup yet?
I have not.
No, I haven't either. For the only lineup we haven't got in is the Dodgers versus Tigers. So I think that will do it for the show today, guys. I appreciate you being on tonight. Again, the $400,000 walk-off tournament there on DraftKings. Also, there is the qualifier, the DFBC qualifier for FanDuel. Is it even called the DFBC, or is it called something else this year? Like the World Fantasy Baseball Championships? I don't know. We'll still call it the DFBC. For $10, you can get in. Last time I saw, there was some decent overlay there. Drew, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so our stuff is over at Roto Experts. It's under the Daily Chat, the Daily Fantasy Rundown. And we just finished off a free week. That was great. We had a lot of people test out the content, test out the site. We really appreciate it. If you're interested in finding a way to get a subscription for free from us, we've got a deal with Fantasy Elite going on with Grant Girton and those guys, where if you deposit over there, you can get a free subscription to our content as well. But we're over at Roto Experts, Daily Fantasy Rundown, and we're pumping out content every day for NBA and MLB.
Very nice. And you can also catch the Derek's content on fantasyinsiders.com. And Derek, appreciate you joining us today as well. And hopefully one of us three has a big night tonight. Drew, I really think it's going to be you. Yeah, I do. I think it's going to be you. So
I get the blessing.
Yeah, have fun with the $100,000 tonight.
I now have to enter these tournaments.
Yeah. How many entries do you have in the DraftKings one so far?
I think I have 4 so far.
So yeah, if you throw in another 6, you're gonna hit. So.
Oh, that's it. Just $1,200. You guarantee me it, huh?
You're Drew Dinkmeyer. You're Dink Piece. I mean, come on. I've seen you on the Draft Street leaderboards. I know you've got that. So, just put another 6 and send me $1,000, and I'll put in 5, and we'll see what I can do with it. So that will do it for today's show. Join us tomorrow, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be talking about the Wednesday night games. So that will do it. Later. Oh, my sound isn't on. David, why do you do this stuff?